And welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 500,000 subscribers. I'm very thankful to each and every one of you. 5,000 new subscribers in just a day. Let's keep growing the community. Let's get to 500,000 and then a million and then 10 million, because it's the only way we're going to stop the insanity coming out of DC. Now, look, I want to be clear about something. President Trump lies right into the camera every single day. And the press, they let him get away with it. Whether it's flipping the numbers on US versus, say, European aid to Ukraine, or promising that everything's going to happen and be resolved within 2 weeks, never stops. Instead of calling him out, cable news, the journalists that are there, they hand him hours and hours and hours of free airtime to continue to poison the public. On Mea Culpa, Glenn Kirschner, my guest, and I talked about how mainstream media continues to keep failing and why independent journalism, like what we have going on here or on my Substack, why independent journalism has become the real watchdog. And more importantly, why Trump's cult following makes accountability harder than ever. Play the clip. How is it possible that in the Oval Office, in front of a gaggle of reporters, cameras going, journalists yelling out, trying to get their question to the president, they ask a question about whether or not the United States is going to continue. And this, of course, is based on a comment that Trump made to the press, where he then goes about and he continues this inaccurate, informational, what we'll call warfare, claiming that the United States has paid out over $380 billion in protecting Ukraine, whereas all of these other Western democracies, the EU and so on, have only paid about $125 billion. Now, all you need to do is to look up the information, and what you'll find out is that Trump has reversed the numbers. It's actually the other way around. We at the United States have provided $125 billion worth of support, but the Western democracies, the EU and so on, have all put in over 360 or 380 billion. How come nobody calls him out on an absolute misstatement like that?
Fact checking seems to be a thing of the past. Now, in fairness, Trump and those around Trump are trying to, handpick the folks who will be allowed in these press events and be allowed to ask him questions. But the reality is, one of the reasons, Michael, I left mainstream media to be 100% independent all the time is because mainstream media seems forever willing to make their editorial decisions by how many viewers it might attract, which translates into how many advertiser dollars they will earn. When I saw the recent meeting between the UK Prime Minister and Trump, and cable media, cable news gave him an hour of uninterrupted airtime to spew his nonsense into the public square, poisoning the minds of the people who are gullible enough to believe anything he says. I said to myself, mainstream media, corporate media, legacy media, because frankly, I think independent media is now mainstream media. So corporate media seems unable or unwilling to learn its lesson. And that's probably why cable news is no longer thriving, because that's not journalism. I was a journalism major, I was mentored by a master, Clark Mollenhoff, multiple Pulitzer Prize winner from the Des Moines Register. I learned at the knee of the master. And what he never taught me was that, fair, balanced, responsible reporting involves reporting the truth and then balancing it out by reporting lies. That's no kind of journalism, but that seems to be where we are in corporate media these days.
You know what's amazing? It's why Mea Culpa right here. Do you know how many downloads since I first started this? I started this because I was on home confinement and I wanted my voice to reach further than the front door of my apartment. 500 million downloads so far. All right. Midas Touch Network, who was with me literally since day number one, now literally the number one platform, outdoing the MSNBCs, outdoing CNN, outdoing Fox and Joe Rogan. You're not wrong. Independent media is the only place to go. I can't believe it, to get unbiased reporting. Now,
It's so important, and it's resonating with people. Let me give you a quick example of what I found so gratifying about now being 100% independent. I think it was the No Kings Day rally, and as soon as I got done speaking at our local rally, I jumped on Substack with Joy Reid, Jim Acosta, and Don Lemon, and I got to talk to people around the country who were signing on to their platforms because they're all independent media now, right? Having left
yep.
cable news. And I got to tell these folks, listen, let me tell you what to do if the police apply force to you at the protest that you are at right now. Because I screened those cases. I screened protester lockups in the basement of the courthouse at the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. And I told people the do's and don'ts, how they can best position themselves, how they can first and foremost commit no crime, do not resist, do not assault a police officer. And then I talked them through the process that I engaged in for years of making the charging decision. Do I charge a protester or do I decline to charge a protester? Let me tell you, I would say 90% of the protest lockups we don't charge for a whole host of reasons because we can't prove crimes beyond a reasonable doubt, first and foremost. But the power of independent journalism at that moment, that I could talk to people, giving them practical advice that they could use while they were at protests, was for me just super gratifying.
Well, here's the only problem when it comes to that, because I do every now and then a show with Jim Acosta on Mondays. I too have a very nice sized Substack audience. I have an amazing group of followers that are always engaged. Every time I go on, they come right in. I mean, I'm more than 50% of the people who are part of my 63,000 plus subscribers, which, by the way, it's all for free, as you know. They read my Substacks every single day. It's an amazing number. If you start putting it all together, of course, hoping to grow it, but independent journalism is really the way to go. But here's something that I read about and I wrote about actually in my Substack. Trump's favorability, while we keep talking about, because we keep talking, my point that I was making, we're talking to ourselves. Like, it's Jim Acosta's 150, 200,000 people. My 60,000 are probably all part of his same Substack community. We're not expanding outside of the reach of those that are already of like mind. And you know how you know that? There was a bunch of polls came out showing that Trump is maintaining favorable numbers in 27 states in this country. 27, with, I think, Wyoming had the highest favorability for Trump on how he's handling not just the United States, the economy, but international affairs. Wyoming at 63%, Texas at 53%. I mean, imagine that. And yeah, I know, New York Times has a -8, Pew has them at -5.2, whatever. My question I want to ask you is, what does this suggest about the legal and the political challenges of holding a president accountable when this massive portion of our country remain loyal, not to the Constitution, not to reality, but to one man's ego?
Political accountability and legal accountability are obviously two very different things. And first of all, I think there are some people who are just flat out cult members, and no matter what Donald Trump says and no matter what Donald Trump does, they will support him. They will cheer him on. I've jokingly said there's probably a hardcore of Donald Trump's cult members who, if he said, you know what, to make America great again, I need to deport you all, my supporters, they would say, genius, what plane do I get on? I mean, cults resonate with some people for a reason, right? People drank the Kool-Aid when it came to Reverend Jim Jones. Cults resonate and grab hold of people for a reason. Now there are lots of different reasons that make a human being susceptible to cult leaders, but Donald Trump is a cult leader. Then there are some who say, listen, by any means necessary, I want to get rid of all the brown people. I want to get rid of all the immigrants. I don't care about constitutional niceties. If you got to chase down people for whom you have no constitutional probable cause to stop or seize, I don't care. Just get them the hell out. Put them in prison in El Salvador. What do I care? Then there are people who actually believe tariffs somehow make us rich, make the American people rich. So I think it's a combination of things when it comes to political accountability. And, Democrats need, listen, I'm glad Gavin Newsom is now trolling Trump, and not only trolling Trump, but also saying Texas is going to gerrymander. You ain't seen nothing yet. I don't believe in an eye for an eye because we all go blind. I'm a rule of law guy. I don't want to start violating the rule of law just because the Republicans are violating the rule of law. But Michael, we got to do something different. And I think Gavin Newsom recognizes that. When it comes to legal accountability, look, we tried last time. The Supreme Court said, no, you're not going to confine our man. We're going to make up out of whole cloth presidential immunity. In fact, let me tell our viewers, the Constitution says the President of the United States must take care that the laws of the nation be faithfully executed. That's the exact opposite of the Supreme Court saying a president can violate the rules, the laws of our nation with immunity. They contradicted the express language of the Constitution. So will legal accountability ever come for Donald Trump? I don't know. But if the White House changes hands during the next presidential election, we're going to need to go on a cleanup mission, and we're going to need to hold or try to hold wrongdoers accountable, but it ain't going to be easy.
Hey, everyone. First of all, thanks for watching. We're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.